The French Revolution was a watershed event in history. Lasting from 1789 to the late 1790s, it was a huge turning point, creating drastic change by overthrowing the political and social systems in France. Today, we will explore the details and come to understand why it was a revolution. The French Revolution had a number of causes. Economically, France was in debt. The country had been involved in the 7 Years' War and the American Revolution. The cost of waging war quickly depleted the French bank. On top of that, the royalty spent extravagantly. On the political front, governance was extremely ineffective. The French believed that the royalty was of divine right, and this resulted in a system of absolute rule. On the social front, the Enlightenment was an intellectual movement that had opened up the thinking of the common people. As a result, secularism was spreading in France, and the religious justifications for power were losing credibility. The last reason was the rigid social class system. The clergy and nobility were placed far above the rest of the French. They were above the law and exempted from taxes. The huge disparity between the classes caused the bourgeois to plan a revolt. What happened next? In 1789, the legislative body, the Estates General, was reconvened. The higher-ranking classes refused to forfeit their privileges to save the country. Finally, on June 17, the Third Estate, made up of the common people, broke away from the Estates General. The French Revolution now hit the streets. Gradually, fear and violence began to build up in Paris. On July 14, rioters stormed the Bastille Fortress in an attempt to secure gunpowder and weapons. The wave of revolutionary fervor and widespread hysteria quickly swept the countryside. Revolting against years of exploitation, peasants looted and burned the homes of tax collectors and landlords. In April 1792, the newly elected Legislative Assembly declared war on Austria and Prussia. In September, the National Convention proclaimed the abolition of the monarchy and the establishment of the French Republic. In 1793, it sent King Louis XVI and his wife, condemned to death for high treason and crimes against the state, to the guillotine. On November 9, 1799, the French Revolution finally ended when Napoleon Bonaparte staged a coup d'etat. The event marked the end of the revolution. So, why was the revolution considered a revolution? Well, it was a turning point in history, both for France, Europe, and the rest of the world. Firstly, revolutions involve a drastic change in the system. The French Revolution caused an upheaval in society, replacing existing systems and schools of thought. The rigid social hierarchy that favored the aristocracy and elite was demolished. All the people of France were now equal before the eyes of the law. Every single French citizen was guaranteed basic human rights, such as liberty. The system of governance, monarchy, was also ousted in favor of democracy. No longer did the king and the royalty have absolute power, with the common people helpless to do anything. The people who now elect representatives into the Legislative Assembly. Secondly, revolutions involve masses. The French Revolution was championed by the masses throughout. From the beginning, the discontent of the people was one of the main causes of the revolution. The dissatisfaction with the economy and the ruling elite triggered the revolution. The masses participated actively to overthrow the system. For instance, the Third Estate, which was the representative for the people, were the ones that broke away to form a national assembly of their own to fight for the rights of the people. The storming of the Bastille Fortress was also a demonstration of the masses. Thirdly, revolutions have positive and negative impacts. The positive impacts were: a French nation emerged in place of divided social classes. A written constitution was made, establishing basic human rights. It opened up opportunities to those who, for reasons of social status or religion, had been traditionally excluded. It also helped to make revolution part of the world's politics. The French Revolution provided instruction for revolutionaries in the 19th and 20th centuries, as people all around the world sought to realize their different versions of freedom. The negative impacts were that the revolution led to more than 20 years of continuous warfare, both in France and Europe. The already weakened economy collapsed as jobs and industries were disrupted. Hyperinflation devastated the economy. In conclusion, the French Revolution was truly revolutionary. It is indeed a turning point in history.